Today I'll be discussing with you democratic and republic. These two words which have been there in the first paragraph of the preamble to the Constitution of India. So, like socialism and secularism, it is also very difficult to define democracy. Democracy means different things to different people. And the word democracy did not find place in the text of the objective resolution. That is the basis, the ground on which the entire constitution was drafted. And that objective resolution, which was passed in January 1947, that was not consisting of this democracy word. But the Constituent Assembly, they thought that democracy should be in the preamble. And it found place as a preambular declaration in the Constitution, we all know. So we see that in the draft constitution and in the preamble to the constitution, the Union of India was described as a sovereign democratic republic. Socialism, secularism has been inserted by 42nd Amendment. Now, as to the meaning of democracy, the Greek word demos, that means many. Many, that is distinct and different from few. So in the perspective of constitutional democracy, it simply means the rule of many. Or we can also say that's rule of majority in the political community. There exist different forms of government, we all know. It is like aristocracy, monarchy, dictatorship, or totalitarianism, oligarchy, but democracy is opposite to all other forms of the government. And the word democracy and democratic that has been used differently in different countries and in different places. Professor Feiner, as has been quoted by H.M. Seervai in his book, he said about democracy that the word democracy by itself is ambiguous. And he says that no political term have been so subjected to contradictory definitions as democracy and democratic. Since it has been a fashion, or it has become a fashionable and profitable for every state to style itself in this way and to call itself as a democratic nation. So he further says that in the erstwhile Soviet Union and the communist states of Eastern Europe, the Chinese People Republic, North Korea, North Vietnam, they all call themselves to be the democracies. Similarly, you see the rulers of Egypt, Paraguay, and Indonesia, they also call them democratic. But these states did not meet the same definition of democracy. Every state is having different type of the working with the government, and they call themselves to be the democratic nations. And their definition of democracy is not same in all these states. So we see that democracy has a precise and literal meaning. And the most accurate definition of democracy has been given by Abraham Lincoln in his Gettysburg speech when he said that democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And this is most accepted, most accurate definition till now. And democracy is logically linked to the welfare of the people. And we see that the satisfaction of the people's needs and the working of the government in accordance with the consent of the persons or to whom they are governing, this is important. And in Dinesh Trivedi versus Union of India, it was 1997 Supreme Court, when Supreme Court has observed that every citizen has a right to participate in the government of the country, and they have a right to know about the affairs of their government. So we see that in our constitution, democracy literally means people's power, or it is said to be a power where the people, they have the right to interfere or in the working of the governance. So they choose or they can dismiss the government, That is the democracy, and they are very, very effective and powerful. So this is the participation of the persons in the governance, that is participatory democracy. Though we see that the preamble does not tell as to what kind of democratic republic it is going to establish for India. But the clause and various provisions, enacting provisions, shows that in India we have chosen for the parliamentary democracy. Parliamentary democracy, which generally means that there is representation of the people, and that includes there is a responsible government, and there is accountability of the council of ministers, the legislature. So the character and content of parliamentary democracy, they all depends on the quality of persons. That is the quality of the representatives of the people as legislators, as representatives to whom they are choosing, they are electing for. And you see that Justice Matthews in Indira Nehru Gandhi case also observed that the problem of defining democracy is twofold. Which require both descriptive, which is expressive, and prescriptive, which is considered to be very rigid, which is not flexible or something very, very strict function. So you see that this democracy is to be understood in for two manners, like descriptive as well as prescriptive, and to avoid any difficulty, to avoid any danger or pitfalls, it is necessary to keep in the mind two things. First, that there must be a firm distinction between is and ought of the democracy. And second, that the prescriptive and descriptive definitions of democracy must not be confused. So this was the opinion of Justice Matthews in Indira Nehru Gandhi regarding democracy for India. We see that Justice Gajendra Gadkar also said about democracy in state of Rajasthan, that is Sajjan Singh versus state of Rajasthan, and that guarantee of fundamental rights was the very foundation and cornerstone of a democratic way of life. So we see that what Justice Gajendra Gadkar has said about the fundamental rights in the democratic way of life, and that is also one of the important factor, that the people's participation is very important. Similarly, if we see that the democracy is also, declared as a basic structure of the constitution in SR Bombay 1994, at the same time also it has been reiterated in Union of India versus Association for Democratic Reforms in 2002 by the Supreme Court. And regarding the protection of fundamental rights and as a democratic principle, IR Kohilo versus Tamil Nadu 2007 Supreme Court case is also important. Then a case which is related to the corrupt practices and corruption, that was Manoj Narula versus Union of India 2014 Supreme Court, where Justice Deepak Mishra, he said about the democratic polity, that the democratic polity as understood in its purity is conceptually abhorrent to corruption, and especially the corruption at the high places. We see that there is criminalization in politics, and this was the case in which Justice Deepak Mishra has took a bold step while deciding and observing on these issues, that it is repulsive of the idea of criminalization of politics, because it corrodes or it destroys the legitimacy of the collective ethos, because the people, they are electing these persons as their representatives, they are to work for their good governance, and if these type of the things would be there, then naturally it is going to destroy, it is naturally going to corrode the very legitimacy of the collective ethos. So it also frustrates the hopes and aspirants of the citizens that they have chosen, they have sent them to the parliament, to the legislature, and what they are doing there. So this was the idea of judgment in Manoj Narula case by Justice Deepak Mishra. And you see that democracy in India, which is said to be a product of the rule of law, and it aspires to establish an egalitarian social order. So Justice Deepak Mishra was, very categorically, observed in this case, Manoj Narula. And it is not only a political philosophy, but also an embodiment of the constitutional philosophy also. And he said that the health of democracy, that is, cherished constitutional values, has to be protected and reserved and sustained. And for that purpose, the instillment of certain norms in the marrow of collective is absolutely necessary, because you know that for human body this is very important. Similarly, for vibrant democracy, this is also very important, that there must be certain philosophical norms, there must be certain norms which our constitution is having, that must be there in those persons also who are being elected by the citizens of the country in the participatory democracy. Then in Anita Thakur versus Jammu and Kashmir, it was 2016 Supreme Court. And the court observed that democracy requires us to respect and to develop the free spirit of human being, which is responsible for all progress in the human history. So, distinguishing feature of democracy is giving a space to the legitimate dissent and expression of grievances through direct action, or we can say a peaceful protest is most cherished one and a valuable aspect of the political democracy in India. So if these aspects are there, then only we can say that there exist the democratic values in the nation. As Justice Chandrachud Y. Chandrachud also said, that dissent is the safety valve in a democratic nation. So we see that in a democracy, the legitimate dissent as well as the persons who are electing or who are selecting these representatives, they must have their own viewpoints. So there are other cases also which are related to the democracy and various aspects of democracy, like Walsamma Paul versus Cochin University, then Shaira Bano versus Union of India 2017 judgment, and which is related to triple talaq, then S.R. Chaudhary versus Punjab. So we see that democracy is a method of government, which is said to be a democracy by discussion, democracy by persuasion, in which the ideas and views of all the persons are required. So that is open for the ideas and views of all, and the core of the democracy is choice. And every citizen has a right to take part in the government of the country. So in that way, democracy or democratic republic has been used in the preamble to the Constitution of India. Then the next word which is there in preamble, that is republic. And when we talk about the republic, then we know that republic denotes the head of the state. That head of the state is not a hereditary monarch, but an elected functionary. And in other words, we can say that the state in which the people are supreme, and there is no privileged class, or we can say that all the public offices are open to every citizen, of course subject to the qualifications as mentioned in the constitution itself. So there is no discrimination between persons, and there is no hereditary ruler. And the head of the state is also the elected functionary and elected by the people. Cooley, he observed that republican form of the government is a government by representatives chosen by the people. And to similar effect, you see that Justice Hidayatullah also said that republic is a state in which the supreme power rests in the final analysis of the people, and not with a single individual like a king or the queen. As we see that in England, there is a king and queen, but in India, we have the president of India, the highest elected authority. And in democratic republic, therefore, we can say that it is a state with an elected head and a government by representatives of the people. So this is what a republic means in our constitution. And according to Madison, republic, when he told about republic, then he was of the opinion that republic is a government which derives its powers directly or indirectly from the people, and it is administered by the persons who are holding the offices during pleasure for a limited period or for good behavior. So you see that the president of India in our country is being elected, and the term is fixed there and can be, impeached also on the basis of the constitutional provisions. So since 26th January 1950, India became a republic, as the head of the union is a president who is elected for a fixed term, and all the citizens are equal in the eyes of law. There is no privileged class, and all the public offices are open to every citizen without any distinction of race, caste, sex, or any of the grounds. So we see that the highest position of the president is open for citizen as per the qualifications. And the Supreme Court in Raghunath Ganpat Rao versus Union of India 1993 also held that when all the offices are open for the citizen of the country, and there is no discrimination or in a republic, and India has chosen for a republican form of the government, then the retention of the privy purses and the privileges of the rulers from the erstwhile princely states, that is not compatible with the sovereign and republican form of the government. So this was the case related to that privy purse and privileges, and there the court has used this republican form of government as one of the aspect of preambular aspect in that scenario. So you see that the first paragraph of the preamble, which speaks about the sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. So all these words have their different meaning, and those are there in the preamble to the Constitution of India. So in the next turn, I'll be discussing with you the preambular objectives, that is equality, justice, liberty, and fraternity.